Medieval India, Part B, the Delhi Sultanate. In this chapter, we shall cover the sources as Qutub Minar and the political history and administration of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad bin Tughlaq. After the decline of the Harshavardhan's empire in 7th century Common Era, India was ruled by the Chalukyas and the Chola dynasties. This is what we have learned in the previous chapters. Around the 10th and 11th century, many small kingdoms had emerged in the northern part of India. But these kingdoms, they lacked a proper central government, and there was also found to be absence of unity. So they vulnerably became prey to the invasions of foreign powers, and the Turks took complete advantage of this situation and started invading these states. They established a strong foothold in North India by the 13th century. The Turk rulers Mahmud Ghazni and Muhammad Ghori laid the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate in India. So the period between 1206 Common Era and 1526 Common Era is the age of Delhi Sultanate. During this era, there were some prominent rulers like Qutubuddin Aibak, Razia Sultana, Iltutmish, Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad bin Tughlaq, who ruled over a large part of the Indian subcontinent. During the rule of almost 320 years, it left many significant impacts on Indian culture, society, economy and history. Now, what are the sources that give us information about this particular sultanate? So, there are a number of sources. Important of them are the inscriptions and the monuments. So, we shall start about the Qutub Minar. This Qutub Minar was built by Qutubuddin Aibak to commemorate the victory of Aibak over the Rajput rulers. Though started by Qutubuddin Aibak, but the construction ended with Iltutmish. Iltutmish was one who completed with the construction in 1220 Common Era. This Qutub Minar was a dedication to the much respected Sufi saint Qutubuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki, and it is one of the monuments of the Qutub complex, which houses the Alai Darwaza Gate and two famous mosques including Quwatul Islam and the Iron Pillar. Qutub Minar is built with marble, red sandstone and grey quartzite. This minar stands tall at a height of almost 73 meters. The diameter at the base is around 14 meters and reduces to about 3 meters at the top. This minar has 5 stories which taper as they increase in height. Each story is separated by a projecting balcony. Internally, the monument has spiral staircase of around 379 steps, which leads to the topmost story. This entire architecture of Qutub Minar is built in such a way that this minar has withstood the test of time since many centuries. That is, till date it exists because of the strong architecture. One can find inscriptions from the Holy Quran and ayats along with intricate carvings and floral motifs in the Qutub Minar. The Sri Vishwakarma Prased Rachita is also engraved on one of the walls of the Qutub Minar, and this monument is an excellent example of Indo-Islamic architecture. Now, the Delhi Sultanate was actually all about 5 dynasties in quick succession. So entire dynasty was in quick succession, and there were 5 in number, starting from the slave dynasty to Khilji dynasty, then Tughlaq dynasty, then Sayyid, and the Lodhi dynasty. So today we are going to learn about the Khilji and the Tughlaq dynasty. And so to begin with, we shall look into Khilji dynasty, that is Alauddin Khilji, with a tenure of from 1296 to 1316. So Alauddin Khilji was the nephew and son-in-law of Jalaluddin Khilji. He was very successful ruler of the Khilji dynasty and was the first Turkish sultan who expanded his empire in India towards the south. It is also said that he won over the nobles on his side by gifting them expensive gifts. He killed the sons and grandsons of the sultan and ascended the throne and dreamed of conquering the whole world, just like Alexander. So during Jalaluddin's time, Alauddin was made actually governor of a particular province called Kara, and after he successfully crushed the revolt against Jalaluddin, Jalaluddin gave him the province of Awadh from his side. And after the victorious expedition of Bhilsa and Devgiri, Alauddin killed his uncle Jalaluddin and annexed his throne in Delhi. Now, Khilji, Alauddin Khilji, came up with quite many changes on ascending the throne. There were some reforms, there were some measures. So let us look into it one by one. The first of its measures were the market regulations. Now, Alauddin had brought about some of the finest market regulations. He implemented price control measures on many commodities, and he had set up 3 marketplaces for food, grains, for expensive cloth, and for horses, slaves, and cattle. He had fixed the rates for all the basic commodities and appointed spies and special people who would supervise the working of the marketplaces and the customers and report directly to Alauddin. So people here who did not follow these regulated prices, that is the sellers, if they do not follow these policies or these prices, or indulged in any sort of a cheating and underweighing goods, they were all given severe punishments. Although Amir Khusraw's works say that Khilji adopted these measures with a view to regularize the market and bring about economic prosperity for the welfare of his people, Barni's work suggests that Alauddin did this to punish the Hindus who indulged in making huge profits. Next is about Deccan Expedition. Now, Deccan is near about the area which is we call the bottom part of our nation. So, with the help of Malik Kafur, Alauddin set out to conquer the Deccan, as he knew of the riches that the region held. And this part of the nation, the country called Deccan, was full of rich, quite good amount of riches in that particular region. So he captured Warangal, Madurai, Dwarasamudra and Devgiri, and not only captured, he conquered it. He, however, did not annex these regions, as he knew it would be impractical to control these regions away from his capital, which was stated in Delhi. Since he was more interested in amassing the wealth of these territories to maintain his army, he forced the rulers to accept his sovereignty and pay their annual tribute to him. So he was more interested, and this was all because he wanted to maintain a strong army. So this was the Deccan Expedition. Alauddin had a dispute. He was a disputed king, actually, because we just saw like how he murdered his own uncle and he ascended the throne. So he had to face and settle the anger and rage of his relatives as well as the nobles. He could curb all kinds of rivalry by killing or blinding the people whom he suspected and looting the nobles of their wealth and property. Not only this, he even killed the 3 nobles who had helped him kill Jalaluddin and declared himself Sultan and ascended the throne of Delhi. On ascending the throne, he had to face the revolt of Mongols, that is, Mongol Invasions. He got the Mongols massacred and succeeded in conquering the regions of Malwa, Ujjain, Dhar, Chanderi, and Mandu. Using his savage techniques, he gained total control over the whole of North India. So, Alauddin had taken some measures against these nobles. These measures they go like: no noble was allowed to hold any celebration or even form marriage alliances. That means no festivities, no celebration, no marriages could be done, could be arranged or could be done without Khilji's consent. So this is what he brought in as the first measure against the nobility. Secondly, gambling and the use of wine were banned. Severe punishments were meted out to offenders. Thirdly, payment of soldiers, which were initially in the form of land, were replaced with cash salaries. So now instead of paying the land as their payment, as their wages, soldiers were now given cash salaries. He had set up an efficient spy system to keep an eye on the nobles and their activities. So these were the measures taken against nobility. Now, Alauddin, who was always wary of a rebellion from the masses, he did everything in his capacity to curb any kind of rebellion. He was the first ruler of Delhi who started the concept of permanent standing army. This army had more than 450,000 horsemen, and he had already brought in market regulations. Following all this, he started paying the soldiers in cash instead of compensating them with land. But he gave lower salaries from the royal treasury to them to increase the number of soldiers in the army. He had a comprehensive list of information of all the soldiers and had introduced system of chehra, which was served as the purpose of an identity card for a cold soldier, and for every soldier, and used to import high quality horses and conducted time to time reviews of the army to keep a check on the horses. The arms and the ammunition were also properly checked. He ensured that during the review process, these horses were not replaced with lower quality horses or presented twice. He had started the system of dag, the system of branding, which is called chehra. So dag and chehra were the two different systems. Apart from all this, Alauddin also came up with some revenue reforms. The agriculture and the crop produce were now largely controlled by the Hindus, who invariably would be village headmen. So he was finding it challenging to bring this under his control. And to counterattack this problem, he confiscated all the land which belonged to the nobles and the villagers and brought it under direct control of his rule. He introduced the system where the land would be measured and accordingly the state share would be calculated, which the landowner had to pay in either cash or face severe consequences. Alauddin increased the tax from 1/3 to 1/2. In northern India, he started the system of payment of 50% kharas tax on the agricultural produce. He dismissed the Hindu rural chiefs who acted as middlemen in the tax collection process and started collecting tax directly from the farmers or cultivators. They were amply remunerated for their honest service and severely punished for any kind of discrepancy and bribery. This brought about a great amount of transparency and regulation in the tax collection process. Now, after ruling for several years, Alauddin died of an illness. So that was in 1316 CE. His tomb lies behind the Qutub complex in Delhi. His confidant and commander Malik Kafur and his successors were unable to rule this large empire effectively. All this resulted in a period of a political turmoil. In 1320 Common Era, the last Khilji ruler, Khusrau Khan, was killed by Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, and the Khilji dynasty therefore came to an end.